Welcome back, dear listener. As you settle beneath the comfort of your blanket, the hum of the day begins to fade. Your breath softens, your thoughts quieten. Above you, the sky stretches wide, vast, velvet, and full of questions. Tonight, you return to that calm, curious place where wonder and rest walk hand in hand. The stars blink softly in the dark, as if they know you've come back to listen. In this gentle hour, your mind is free to wander, far from the familiar pull of gravity into the unknown. Two places no human has ever stood, two oceans that shimmer beneath foreign suns, and so a question rises: could something be swimming out there? Right now, as you lie still on Earth, could there be life adrift in alien seas, silent, graceful, unseen? You don't need answers tonight. Just the warmth of possibility is enough. Let go of the weight you've carried all day. Let your thoughts float on currents of curiosity. With every breath, you drift deeper, not into sleep just yet, but into a story shaped by science and softened by wonder. This is your space. This is your time. The stars are listening, and so are you. Asterisk, asterisk, you lie still, wrapped in a quiet moment. Your breath slow and even, your thoughts drifting just beyond reach. The ceiling above you disappears as your mind tilts upward toward the great dark sea of stars. The night sky, ancient and endless, presses softly against the edges of your awareness. It doesn't shout for attention. It waits. It holds its questions in silence. And tonight, you are ready to listen. Out there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the moon, beyond even the familiar planets of our solar system, there are other suns you've never seen, each one surrounded by a family of unseen planets. Thousands of them, perhaps millions. You think about this quietly, the way you might think of the ocean, vast, alive, mysterious. The stars are not alone, and neither, perhaps, are you. Somewhere, light years away, a planet spins. Maybe it's covered in thick clouds or wrapped in ice. Maybe it looks nothing like Earth, or maybe, just maybe it has oceans. Oceans that lap gently at alien shores. Oceans that hold secrets in their depths. And in those waters, what if something watches the stars, just like you do now? What if, at this very moment, under a foreign sky, a living thing is breathing? The thought moves through you slowly, not with fear, but with quiet awe. You are not afraid of the unknown. You are curious. You want to understand, not conquer. You want to see what's out there, not for the sake of discovery alone, but because something deep in you recognizes that this universe is not empty. It's unfolding. You close your eyes, but your mind remains open. You drift backward through time, through space, through the long journey that brought humanity to this point of knowing. There was a time when we believed Earth was the center of everything, when stars were just holes in a velvet dome, when the sky was small and the world was flat. But the questions kept coming, and slowly the answers began to stretch outward. We learned to look up with instruments of glass and steel. We sent our questions into the sky in the form of telescopes, satellites, spacecraft, and the sky began to answer. Planets were found first, a handful, then hundreds, then thousands. Exoplanets, they call them. Worlds beyond our solar system. And suddenly, the galaxy wasn't just a painting of light. It was full of destinations. You picture it now. A dark sea dotted with planets like stepping stones. Some too hot, some too cold, some just right. The Goldilocks zone, scientists call it the narrow band around a star where liquid water might exist. Not frozen, not vaporized, just liquid, just life-friendly. You can almost feel the warmth of those distant suns on your skin, even though they are light years away. Water, that's the key. Life, as we know it, begins in water. Your own body, cradled in the womb, floated in a sea before breath ever filled your lungs. And Earth, too, was once a planet of fire that cooled into a planet of seas. Everywhere we look on Earth, wherever there is water, we find life. In the coldest trenches, in the hottest springs, in places where sunlight never touches, life finds a way. And so we search for water out there, because water might mean we are not alone. You imagine yourself drifting above a distant exoplanet. Maybe it's TOI 145 to be a world scientists believe could be entirely ocean. A true water world. No land, no mountains, just endless sea under a soft alien sky. The light from its sun filters through clouds you've never seen before. And below the waves, who knows? Maybe nothing, or maybe something ancient, something new, something swimming. The thought ripples through your chest. Could there be alien fish, not like Earth's, of course, not with fins or scales or familiar eyes, but something alive, something that senses, that responds, that moves? Maybe it doesn't look like anything we've imagined. Maybe it pulses instead of swims. Maybe it absorbs heat instead of light. Maybe it doesn't need air, but still exists. You turn your attention to the instruments we use, the telescopes, the algorithms the scientists peering at screens filled with color-coded data. They search for biosignatures, molecules that could hint at life. Oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide, dimethyl sulfide compound on Earth linked to marine life. K2218b, they say, might have it. It's not proof, but it's a whisper. And sometimes whispers are enough to keep listening. The search is slow. The distances are unimaginable. These planets are not just farther, they are farther than your lifetime could ever reach. And yet, with light as our messenger, we learn. We use the colors in starlight to understand the gases in alien skies. We read the spectra like ancient poets read omens in the wind. It's not magic, it's not certainty, but it is beautiful. Imagine standing beneath a sky on one of these distant planets, looking up at a sun that shines a different hue: orange, red, or maybe faint blue. Imagine the gravity pressing on your skin a little differently. Imagine the air carrying unfamiliar scents, or perhaps none at all. Life there would not follow Earth's patterns, but it could still be life, still be conscious in ways we have never conceived. You lie still and let your imagination gently fill in the gaps that science has not yet reached. Our tools grow more precise every year. The James Webb Space Telescope has already begun sending back data that expands the edges of what we know. Soon, others will follow the extremely large telescope, the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. With them, our view will sharpen. The atmospheres of exoplanets will become clearer. The questions will become more focused, more daring. Not just, is there life, but what kind? Not just could it be, but how different might it be? And yet, even with all our progress, we remain children staring into the dark, pointing at shadows. But the shadows dance, and the dance is enough to keep wondering. You don't need certainty. If water is the cradle of life, then where are the cradles hiding? The thought lingers like a shimmer just beyond vision, gentle and persistent. You lie still beneath the weightless hush of night, letting the silence stretch as wide as the galaxies. Your mind now roams. In the great orchestration of stars and planets, the melody of life might not come from the grandest notes, but from a delicate balancer, place not too hot, not too cold, where a planet spins in quiet harmony. This place has a name whispered by astronomers and dreamers alike: the habitable zone, the Goldilocks zone. You smile softly at the name. Like a storybook tucked inside a textbook, it evokes something both ancient and childlike. Goldilocks, the girl who searched for what felt just right. In a universe of extremes, it's comforting to think that somewhere, amid all the cosmic chaos, there are places of balance. Planets that rest in that narrow golden band where liquid water might softly lap against stone. Where the warmth of a sun is not too searing, not too faint, but cradles a world in a gentle embrace. You imagine yourself drifting across such orbits now. A star pulses quietly in the center, and planets spiral around it like dancers who found their rhythm. Too close, and the heat would boil oceans into steam. Too far, and even light would struggle to warm the ground. But there, in the middle just, their world spins in silence, its temperature tender, its skies calm. You float above it, the light brushing against your face like a lullaby. The concept is simple, yet profound. The habitable zone is not a fixed distance. It depends on the star's temperature. Around a large, hot star, the zone lies farther out. Around a cooler, dimmer one, it hugs close. Each star becomes a hearth, and the habitable zone its warm glow. You picture stars not just as burning orbs, but as campfires, and planets as wanderers, choosing how near to rest. Earth, our home, sits perfectly in such a zone, not by design, not by destiny, but by a fortunate alignment of conditions, a balance so precise it allowed oceans to form, clouds to gather, and life to breathe into being. And now, as we scan the skies, we search for other such balances, for planets that have found their own sweet spot in the light. One such world may be LHS 1140b, a super-Earth orbiting a red dwarf star. It lies within its star's habitable zone and may hold an ocean beneath its skies. Not an ocean we've seen, but one inferred from mass, radius, and the way its atmosphere behaves. You close your eyes and imagine standing on its surface. Sky is dimmer than ours, tinged with red. The sunlight feels softer, the gravity pulls a little harder, but there's water, there's warmth, there's possibility. The habitable zone is not a guarantee of life, but it's a good place to start. It's where water could exist as a liquid, where molecules might come together in the dance of biology. It's where chemistry has a chance to become poetry, where silence might someday give way to song. You think of K218b, a planet that orbits within the habitable zone of its star. Its atmosphere shows signs of water, vapor, hints of clouds, of rain, of a cycle like the one that breathes life into Earth. Scientists found methane and carbon dioxide there, and perhaps a molecule called dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, this molecule is linked to plankton, tiny ocean dwellers. You wonder, could something similar be drifting through alien clouds, releasing breath into the wind? It's a gentle kind of wonder, the kind that doesn't need proof to find peace. You let the facts carry you like a current trio, grounded but open-ended. You understand that science is not about jumping to conclusions. It's about asking the right questions and then listening. The habitable zones are questions, written in starlight. And we, with our telescopes and trembling hope, are listening. Not all habitable zones are friendly. A planet might lie in the right range, but lack an atmosphere to hold heat. Or it might have too much thick with carbon dioxide, like Venus, trapping heat until the surface becomes a furnace. Or it might be battered by solar flares, stripped bare by radiation. The conditions must align in more ways than one. Temperature is just one thread in a much larger weave. Still, the idea persists. Somewhere in all the spinning orbits and glowing suns, there are places where conditions quietly whisper, just right. You drift through one now in your imagination. A gentle world with shallow seas, soft winds, and skies that shift in colors you've never seen. No sound, no movement, just the feeling that something might be there. Something waiting. The universe doesn't design its zones with life in mind. But life, if it appears, makes the most of what is offered. On Earth, life has flourished in deserts, in ice, in acid pools, in the mouths of volcanoes. So imagine what it might do in a world that's actually comfortable. In a place warmed by its sun, fed by its waters, protected by its atmosphere. A place where time moves slow and evolution is given room to breathe. Perhaps this is why we are drawn to the Goldilocks zone. Not because it promises answers, but because it offers a canvas, a place to paint our hopes, our scientific questions, our deepest longings. It's where we imagine Earth's distant cousins, different in form, but familiar in spirit. You let your thoughts travel further now, to the Kepler mission, which revealed hundreds of planets in habitable zones. Some are rocky, like Earth, some larger, some smaller. Some orbit quiet stars, others more active ones. And in this diversity, you see a pattern. The universe is not stingy. It offers many chances, many experiments, many cradles. The night air in your room feels cooler now. Or maybe it's just the feeling of vastness settling over you. You wrap yourself more tightly in your blanket and think of all the planets orbiting quietly in their own Goldilocks glow, unaware they are being watched, unaware they are part of a dream larger than themselves. You think of Earth, this rare, balanced marble in the dark. How fragile its climate is, how precise its conditions must remain, and how easily that balance can tip. The Goldilocks zone is not a promise, it's a gift, one that must be nurtured, respected, and protected, because even here, even now, life is not guaranteed. It is held delicately. Maybe that's why we look outward. Maybe we search for habitable zones out there so we can remember how to care for the one we're in. Maybe every exoplanet we study is a mirror, showing us not only what could be, but what is, and how precious it is. You feel yourself begin to drift, not into sleep yet, but into a space of softness. A place where knowledge meets imagination, where facts are folded into feeling. You understand the science of light, of orbit, of temperature. But more than that, you understand the feeling of being held by gravity, by warmth, by the silent turning of a planet just right. And somewhere in that softness, you sense the next question. If some planets are just right, how do we know which ones? What signs do we look for in the faint glow of a distant star? And what happens when those signs begin to speak not in words, but in light? You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer yet. You only need the glow. Asterisk. You hold the question gently. The idea is not fantasy. It is grounded in comparison. On Earth, water is the backdrop of life. From the first cell to the complexity of whales. From the gentle ripple of ponds to the vast orchestration of tides, water has always held us. And so, when we find it elsewhere, we don't just find chemistry, we find potential. TOI 145 to be is a question not of what water is, but what it might hold. You picture alien waves lapping gently beneath a soft sky. Maybe clouds swirl in slow dances above, and the ocean below churns in rhythms shaped by unseen moons. You imagine the planet rotating slowly, its ocean breathing under starlight, currents circling for thousands of years. Maybe in that quiet, small forms begin, microscopic, drifting, adapting. You don't know their shape, their senses, their purpose. But you imagine them existing, and that is enough. The search for ocean worlds is growing. Astronomers now look not just for Earth-like planets, but for those with signs of deep water, planets with lower densities than expected, spectra hinting at vapor, clouds, frost. Some might have ice shells hiding liquid water below. Others, like TOI 145 to be, might wear their oceans openly. You think of Kepler 138d and C, two planets that may be mostly water by mass. Not dry rocks, not gas giants, but something in between. Something more fluid, more alive. You close your eyes and drift through a sea that has never felt a human hand. You think of what it would be like to sink through such a world, not in a ship, but in a dream. Light bends as it enters the water. Colors change. Pressure wraps around you like a slow heartbeat. In this place, science and imagination swim. Together, you begin to understand why we call them liquid dreams. Because they move, they shift. They reflect the idea of life in alien oceans does not come from hope alone. It comes from pattern. Wherever we find water on Earth, beneath ice caps, inside rocks, in boiling springs, we often find life. It is persistent, adaptable, brave. So we wonder if water exists in abundance elsewhere. Could life emerge there too? Could something move in the depths of TOI 145 to be unseen and untouched, as curious about its universe as we are? You think of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Beneath its icy crust lies a global ocean. Though far from the warmth of the sun, tidal forces keep its waters liquid. And in those dark, buried seas, we imagine something living, not because we need it to, but because the evidence says it might. Europa is not unique. Enceladus, Titan, Ganymede, so many moons hold secrets in their watery hearts. And if our solar system offers so many ocean worlds, how many more exist beyond it? The night around you deepens, your body relaxes, but your thoughts swim further. You think about how hard it is to detect water from light years away. Scientists look at the way starlight bends and dims as a planet passes in front of its star. They read the fingerprints left in the light. A dip in brightness, a shift in wavelength. From this, they infer atmospheres, compositions, temperatures. It's delicate work, decoding oceans from shadows. But the signals grow stronger, more precise, and each time we detect water, we move one ripple closer to understanding. Maybe life, if it exists on TOI 1452b, doesn't look like us. Maybe it doesn't even think. Maybe it simply exists, floating, pulsing, drifting with a current. Maybe it listens in its own way to the gravity of moons, the warmth of underwater vents, the silence between waves. And maybe that is enough. Maybe life does not need to build or speak or wonder to be meaningful. Maybe to live is to respond. You consider this quietly, how even on Earth, the majority of life remains unknown to us, unnamed, unseen. Most of the ocean is still unexplored. The creatures we do know often feel alien, bioluminescent, translucent, shaped by pressure and time. Some were discovered by accident, others only through machines that could withstand the depths. You realize the line between alien and earthly is thinner than we think. We don't need to invent strange beings. We only need to look more closely. The thought soothes you. You no longer feel the need for proof's presence. Just the idea that in some far corner of the galaxy, a sea sways beneath clouds we will never touch. That beneath those waves, movement happens. Life, or something like it, makes its quiet way through darkness. You feel close to it, not because you see it, but because you imagine it gently, with respect. You return now to the surface of that imagined ocean. You feel the pull of its tides, the hush of its air. You are rocked, not by waves, but by wonder. And you know, as surely as anything, that science is not about certainty. It is about curiosity, about letting questions float without needing them to land. Above TOI 145 to B, stars move slowly. The binary suns cast twin shadows. And below, in the deep, the story continues. Wordless, dark, alive. You don't rush to solve it. You just listen. Because sometimes the most beautiful truths are the ones that unfold in silence. As you breathe in the softness of the moment, you think of how light led us here, from Goldilocks zones to glimmers of water. But now, to know more, we must read the light itself. We must learn its language. You feel the next question forming, like a current beneath your thoughts. How does light tell us what we cannot see? How do we listen to it across galaxies and understand? You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer yet. You only need the ripple, asterisk, asterisk. You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer yet. You only need the ripple. But now, in the ripple's quiet widening, you begin to listen. Not with your ears, but with something deeper. The part of you that understands that everything in the universe, even silence, is saying something. You close your eyes and you see starlight, not as brightness, but as a message, a vibration, a voice from far away. The stars are not just shining, they're speaking. You drift there, in the darkness beyond the imagined oceans, feeling the universe hum softly. Above, stars pulse with light billions of years old. That light travels across the emptiness, through the veils of gas and dust, arriving finally to a mirror or a lens or a sensor, a telescope. And in that delicate arrival, we begin to read. Not the way we read words on a page, but the way we read feelings in a breath, meanings in a pause. This is spectral analysis, the gentle unfolding of what light carries. Every element in the universe absorbs and emits light in its own way. When starlight passes through a planet's atmosphere, that atmosphere leaves its signature, thin lines, gaps, shades in the spectrum. You picture a prism now, splitting light into its hidden rainbow. And within that rainbow, whispers, oxygen, methane, water, vapor, carbon dioxide. The fingerprints of possibility. You imagine a planet orbiting a star too distant. You drift further, deeper into thought. You think of how this method, spectroscopy, is used not just for exoplanets, but for stars, galaxies, even black holes. It tells us what things are made of, how fast they move, how far they are. It tells us if something is spinning, expanding, cooling. The entire history of the cosmos, written in invisible ink, revealed by how light stretches or compresses. You wonder now, if we can listen to starlight, can we also listen to ourselves? Our own planet sings too, just like any other world. From far away, we would look like a pale blue dot with atmospheric fingerprints, nitrogen, oxygen, traces of life. If alien astronomers existed, could they see our spectral song? Could they read our breath in the light we scatter? This thought brings you comfort. It reminds you that we are part of this, not outside it. That Earth, too, is a line in the starlit poem. Our oceans shimmer, our clouds move, our light speaks. You return to the colors, the way hydrogen glows red, helium shines yellow, sodium flares orange. You imagine them as paintbrushes, painting the sky not with brightness, but with story. The stars are not just distant suns. They are libraries. And in their light, whole shelves of knowledge quietly burn. And so you listen. You let the silence between stars become rich with suggestion. You feel how light, stretched thin by distance, still finds its way to us. How even the faintest glow carries the memory of where it's been. Light never forgets. It brings news from other skies, other atmospheres, other worlds. You think of the future of telescopes yet to launch, of instruments yet to be built. The extremely large telescope, the Roman Space Telescope, eyes and ears for the next century. They will not only see more, they will hear more, finer details, softer whispers. They will teach us how to read the light more fluently. And maybe, one day, they will catch a pattern that cannot be explained by chemistry alone. A rhythm too precise, a signal too deliberate. Maybe, one day, the language of light will say, "You are not alone." You don't rush toward that hope. You let it rise like steam, gently, slowly, because science is not about rushing. It is about watching, waiting, listening. You think again of the spectral lines, how they are not visible to the eye, but revealed through tools. It reminds you that so much of truth is hidden until we learn how to see or how to hear. The universe is always speaking. It is we who must learn the grammar. You feel the chapter closing like a curtain drawn softly across a night window. You are full, but not finished. You are still curious, still calm. You have seen the power of light, not to blind, but to reveal. And now you sense where the journey must go next. If we know what planets are made of, what their air holds, what their light sings, then what happens if we find a sign that doesn't belong? What happens when the spectrum reveals something ... unnatural? You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer yet. You only need the silence between the stars, too. Keep speaking. Asterisk, asterisk. You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer. Yet, you only need the silence between the stars to keep speaking. And somewhere in that silence, one whisper grows louder. Not a shout, not a song, just a pattern repeating softly. A rhythm in the light, a world among many, but this one, with a voice slightly clearer. K218b. You let its name echo through your mind like a lullaby from another. Sky.K2-18b does not look back at you. It does not glow brightly in your eyes, but it calls, faint and persistent in the language of color. Wrapped in thick clouds, cocooned by its star's soft heat, this planet rests in the habitable zone of a red dwarf. Cool, steady, a candle in deep space. You drift toward it now in thought, not as an explorer, but as a listener. The light we read from K218b passes through layers of its atmosphere, through haze and vapor, and it carries with it a message. Astronomers tilt their instruments, calibrate their vision, and what they see takes their breath, not because it's dramatic, but because it's familiar. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane. These molecules do not confirm life, but they do suggest comfort, a climate that may be gentle, moist, balanced, and then, in the glow, something more fragile appears, a tentative whisper of dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, this molecule is not rare. It rises from oceans, exhaled by plankton, tiny life, fragile life. You think of those microorganisms, invisible yet essential, shaping our air and skies. If dimethyl sulfide truly exists on K218b, it would be the first known biosignature beyond Earth, not proof, but suggestion. Not discovery, but possibility. You imagine yourself floating through K218b's atmosphere now. A thick, damp fog wrapping around your skin. The air feels heavy, but not hostile. The light is dimmer, painted in red tones. The gravity pulls slightly stronger, reminding you that this planet is larger than Earth, a sub-Neptune, more massive, yet still capable of holding oceans, air, and perhaps the ingredients for life. There is no land beneath your feet, only sky, and below, perhaps an endless ocean or a dense soup of liquid and cloud. You hover, breath slow and even, letting the planet speak. Each molecule around you feels like a syllable in an ancient language. Water, it says. Warmth, it hums. And somewhere in the background, dimethyl sulfide, the exhale of something alive, or the echo of something more ordinary. The scientists are careful. They do not celebrate. They refine their models, check their errors, rerun the data. But you, in this quiet place, are allowed to wonder, not to claim, but to imagine. What might life look like here, wrapped in clouds, swimming through a warm planetary sea? Would it have eyes? Would it think? Would it know of us or care? K218b orbits a red dwarf star, a type of sun smaller and cooler than ours. Red dwarfs burn for trillions of years, long, slow, stable. This gives life time, time to start, time to start, time to evolve. But these stars can also flare, bursts of radiation that strip atmospheres, disturb balance. You think about how fragile conditions must be for life to root itself, and how resilient life must be if it thrives anyway. On Earth, life has bloomed. In every corner, in ice, acid, lava, stone, in darkness so deep that not even light dares go. So you ask yourself, could something live in the gentle warmth of K218b, beneath a fog of vapor and gas, feeding on chemistry, exhaling signatures into the sky? The thought stirs something ancient in you, a kind of kinship. You are made of water, carbon, breath. You are a pattern that came together in the right warmth, under the right sky. And now you wonder if that pattern repeats, not identically, but poetically, elsewhere. Life, but for now, you are content with the whisper. You are content with the maybe, because maybe is where science begins. Not with answers, but with attention, and somewhere inside that attention, you ask another question. If K2218b speaks through molecules, what would it mean to reply? Not with words or probes, but with care, with listening, with stewardship of our own world, so that when we are seen from afar, our light also sings something worth hearing. You settle now, wrapped in the weightless quiet of not knowing. You do not need to decide what the whisper means. You only need to let it echo gently, like waves across water, like wind through a canyon. The story is not finished. The spectrum is not complete. But the light is still coming. And you are still listening, and as your mind begins to rest, a final thought arrives. If one planet whispers of life, how many others do we miss because we haven't yet learned how to listen? You hold the question gently. You don't need the answer yet. You only need the whisper. Asterisk. 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 You don't need the answer yet. You only need the whisper. And so, you follow it, not away from K218b, but further still, to another quiet signal from the cosmos. A different world, yet somehow kin to the last. You drift through the hush of interstellar space, the dark velvet between stars, until a dim sun glows gently ahead. A red dwarf, calm and steady, cradling a world in shadow. LHS 1140b. The name is quiet, scientific, but you imagine it whispered underwater, like a current curling around coral. LHS 1140b. A planet heavier than Earth, yet familiar. Rocky, solid, ocean-wrapped, a world of blue. They say its density suggests land beneath water, rock under waves, and an atmosphere capable of hugging warmth to its surface. It orbits close to its star, yet not too close. Just close enough for water to remain liquid, for clouds to gather, for rain to fall, if rain exists there at all. You float now above its imagined ocean. It stretches endlessly beneath you, a blue-black plain interrupted only by gentle ripples of thought. There are no continents here, no mountains breaking the surface, just depth. Trenches that fall far deeper than Earth's Marianas, valleys that have never met light. The silence is not empty. It is full. Full of questions. You wonder what it would feel like to dive there, to leave the upper atmosphere behind and sink through those alien waters. The pressure increases quickly. Light fades. Soon, there is only darkness, but not the kind that frightens, a nurturing kind, like a womb of time and gravity. You let yourself sink deeper, your breath in rhythm with your curiosity. Could life exist here in the dark? You think of Earth's deep sea creatures, eyeless, glowing, resilient. Worms that feast on chemicals. Instead of sunlight, shrimp that navigate by vibration. Life that doesn't need light, only chemistry, pressure, and persistence. If it can happen here, could it not also happen there? 1140b's ocean may be still, or it may be full of currents, unseen and unmeasured, tides pooled by an unknown moon, storms rolling beneath a sky of red starlight. You imagine bioluminescent creatures swirling in slow spirals, dancing not for eyes, but for each other, communicating through pulses of light, breathing through filters in the deep. We don't see this world, not directly, It lies 48 light-years away, far, but not unreachable in thought. Telescopes see the dimming of its star, the wobble of its light. From this, they build models, run simulations. They estimate the planet's size, its mass, its density. They guess at what might be. And you, lying in the softness of night, fill in the rest with imagination. The beauty of a water world is not just in its potential for life, but in its patience. Oceans are stable. They resist sudden change. They hold heat, support chemistry, shield from radiation. They are, in many ways, the original cradles. And LHS 1140b may be one of them. Vast, ancient, silent, its star is quiet to a red dwarf, smaller and cooler than our sun, but more enduring. These stars burn slowly, giving planets time to settle, to mature. 1 billion years might pass in soft starlight, uninterrupted by flares or collapse. 1 billion years for molecules to meet, to join, to dance the long dance toward life. You picture evolution not in leaps, but in ripples. A molecule sticks to another. A pattern repeats. A membrane forms. A boundary is drawn. Inside that boundary, chemistry gains memory. Reaction becomes reproduction. And somewhere in the slow tide of time, awareness flickers. Not thought, mind, just the beginning of response. The start of life. Could such a process have happened here, beneath the surface of LHS 1140b? Not as Earth life, but as something tuned to its own rhythms, slower, colder, perhaps more fluid. You imagine organisms that metabolize heat from the planet's core, or feed on minerals released from underwater vents. Creatures that have never known light and therefore do not miss it. You think, again, of vision. On Earth, eyes have evolved. Multiple times, not once, but many, because seeing is a powerful survival tool. But in darkness, different senses emerge. Pressure, sound, electric fields, touch. Might some life here navigate using echoes, or magnetic currents? Might it understand its world through temperature gradients or chemical trails? The longer you drift in this imagined deep, the more vivid it becomes. You are no longer alone. Shapes pass you in the dark, slow, soft-bodied, perhaps even graceful. Not monsters, not threats, tease, beings of the deep, evolved for silence. Their presence calms you, 'cause they belong. They are part of the planet's breath. Scientists say LHS 1140b may have retained its atmosphere, an unusual trait for a planet so close to its star. This means less radiation stripping, more stability, a better chance for water to remain. for pressure to build, for life to stir. And even if we can't yet see it, even if we can't yet prove it, the conditions are kind, and sometimes kindness is enough for a story to begin. You imagine the first expedition there, robotic, slow, careful. A probe descending into the clouds, then water. Instruments measuring temperature, salinity. You let it ripple outward across the ocean of stars. But as the wave of thought settles, another name rises in your mind like a soft echo, Kepler. Not a planet, but a mission, a telescope, a gaze. And in that gaze, a secret quietly whispered across light years, that Earth may not be rare, that water, the breath of life, may be more common than we ever dared to believe. You drift now toward the Kepler system, toward a pair of planets nestled in its quiet arms, Kepler 138c and Kepler 138d. Their names are not poetic, but their truth is. These are not Earth twins. They are not copies of our home, but they are water worlds. Not imagined, not guessed, inferred through weight, through mass, through the language of gravity and light. You close your eyes and feel their presence. Their densities tell the story. Too light for rock alone, too heavy for gas. They float somewhere in between, a mixture, a mosaic, with water playing the lead. You imagine their layers, vapor, cloud, liquid, perhaps even ice, stacked like pages in a book never read, waiting for discovery. It humbles you, because Earth, with all its beauty, may not be unique. We are special, but perhaps not singular. The presence of these two ocean worlds in one small star system suggests a quiet truth that water-rich planets may not be the exception. They may be the rule. You breathe this in slowly, like cool air on a starlit beach. Kepler-138c and D orbit a red dwarf star, smaller, cooler, older than our sun. These stars live long lives, billions of years longer than ours. That means time. Time for planets to form, for oceans to settle, for chemistry to begin its dance. Time, even for life. You imagine standing on a platform above those seas. No land in sight, just the soft rolling of waves beneath red-tinted skies. The sun, dimmer but persistent, casting a salmon glow across endless water. The wind here is quiet, perhaps slow. The weather gentle, shaped not by continents, but by temperature gradients across the sea. There might be storms, massive ones, driven not by seasons, but by the planet's slow rotation or tidal locking. You picture an eternal dawn on one side, an endless twilight on the other. And in the middle, a place of balance, a region where warmth and coolness meet, where life might thrive if given the right ingredients. Scientists once assumed that Earth-like meant rocky, temperate, land-bearing. But now, these water worlds invite a redefinition. Perhaps oceans are not secondary. Perhaps they are fundamental. Perhaps the universe prefers the fluid, the flowing, the reflective. And in that preference, there may be a blueprint for life. You drift through that idea like kelp through current, gently, without resistance. The Kepler planets are far, 218 light-years away. But their data is here. Their densities have been studied, their atmospheres modeled. And while we have not seen their waves, we have heard their weight, felt their whisper. It's easy to imagine life there, not as it is here, but as it could be. Maybe not on the surface, where pressure or heat might be too great, but beneath, deep in trenches warmed by geothermal vents, in layers shielded from solar radiation. Microbes first, then colonies, then complexity. You think again of Earth's beginning, how life started, not in the sunlight, but in the deep. Not with plants and animals, but with single-celled explorers feeding off minerals and heat. Life that didn't need light. Only time, only chemistry, only chance. And so, the question arises, if life began in Earth's oceans and water worlds are common, is life itself common too? You hold the question like a stone warmed in your hand, solid, heavy, comforting. It feels less like a dream and more like a probability, as though across the galaxy, life is not a miracle, but a tendency, a consequence of water, of patience, of molecules left undisturbed long enough to evolve. You think of all the Kepler discoveries, thousands of planets, hundreds inhabitable zones, and more still being uncovered by new missions. Each one is a chapter, each density a hint, each signal a possibility. Kepler-138 C and 138 D do not shout, they do not flash or roar, they whisper. And in that whisper, they change everything. Because if water worlds are frequent, then Earth is not alone. We are not the lone oasis in a desert of dust. We are part of an archipelago, one island among many, floating in a sea of stars. This realization shifts something inside you. Not fear, not arrogance, just belonging. You belong to a universe that builds with water, that sculpts worlds from vapor and sea. You are not separate from it. You are an extension of it, a wave rising from the ocean, aware just long enough to see itself. And then, like all waves, you return to stillness, to drift. Kepler's gentle secret is not just about planets. It's about perspective. It's about humility, about letting go of the idea that Earth is center, that life must look like us, that intelligence is the goal. Maybe the universe doesn't aim for complexity. Maybe it simply lets it happen when conditions allow. You imagine these water worlds not just as places to explore, but as reminders, to listen, to wonder, to see difference not as alien, but as expression. And still, you wonder how long these planets have carried their oceans. Were they born wet, or did comets deliver the ingredients? Their seas always rolled, or did they freeze for millennia before warming again? Could life rise and fall in cycles we haven't yet conceived? You picture distant waves rippling under alien winds, perhaps disturbed once in 1,000 years by a volcanic vent or meteor's kiss. You picture microbes clinging to thermal ridges, evolving slowly, forming communities around nutrients that trickle upward from a molten core. You imagine those lives never needing light, only warmth and time. Somewhere within those oceans might be fossils, ancient, unmoving, preserved in icy stillness. Or they might be alive, swimming quietly through salty dark, unaware of us, unaware of anything beyond pressure, temperature, flow. And you reflect again on Earth's own creatures of the deep, the bioluminescent fish, the eyeless worms, the shimmering jellies that drift through darkness. Life that flourishes without sun or sky. Life that shows us what is possible when assumptions fall away. Kepler's secret isn't only scientific, it's philosophical. It asks you to release your grip on human shape, on Earth's blue. You think of the tools we've built: Kepler, Hubble, Webb, each one a seeker, a collector of echoes. They do not paint pictures. They catch whispers, and from those whispers we build meaning. We reconstruct planets from patterns, mass from wobble, atmosphere from absorption lines, and signals eventually become stories. But you cannot visit, not yet. And so you learn to accept this, to let curiosity live with distance, to let imagination grow in the spaces that light leaves behind. The silence between worlds is not empty. It is soft, waiting, kind. You imagine standing at the edge of a great lake, one shrouded in fog. You hear movement on the other shore, a splash, a bird call, a distant voice, but the mist hides the source. That's what astronomy is. Not exploration, but listening through mist. You do not find planets. You recognize them by the ripple they leave behind. In your mind, you float beside LHS 1140b. Again. The water, deep and dark. You picture not the surface, but the sound of the waves. Not because you've heard them, but because you trust the science. Because the data pressure, density, albedo paints a picture. You do not need to see a thing to know it's real. Still, part of you wishes for more, for closeness, for contact. It's a human thing, the desire to reach. Even now, tucked in sleep, you feel it. The child inside you stretching out fingers toward the stars, so you study the light. You learn its language. You listen harder. Light becomes a dictionary, a translator. Blue shifts, red shifts, emission lines, absorption gaps. Methane, water, carbon dioxide. Every molecule leaves a signature in the starlight. The universe is not silent. It speaks. You are just learning to hear. The more you learn, the more you understand how much you cannot know. Not yet. And this could be frustrating. But instead, you find it calming. Like a song with no end. Like a story that unfolds only as you breathe. The stars are patient, and they ask you to be. This is the quiet beauty of astronomy. It teaches you patience. You cannot rush the stars. You cannot rush discovery. Light takes time. Learning takes time. And life, if it is out there, waits without needing to be found. You think of the James Webb Telescope floating in cold, perfect darkness. Its golden mirrors open like petals. It does not see planets, it reads heat. It deciphers whispers in the mid-infrared. It is not a camera. It is a listener. From its silence come revelations. A dimming star reveals a transit. A curve in light reveals mass. A spike in a spectral line suggests a molecule. Sometimes the molecule is familiar water, methane. Sometimes it is strange, dimethyl sulfide, phosphine, molecules that, on Earth, are made by life. But even a whisper is not a song. One detection is not a voice. Still, it is enough to stir something. It is enough to imagine. You lie with this thought, the difference between unseen and unknown, between invisible and ignored. There are places you'll never see, but that doesn't make them unreal. You've never touched the moon, but you believe in its gravity. You've never swum in Europa Sea, but you believe it is there. You do not need your senses to prove something. Sometimes trust comes through pattern, repetition, evidence shaped like poetry. There is grace in inference. There is beauty in the act of believing without seeing. Not blindly, but with care, with science, with attention to detail. You return now to Earth in your mind. You remember that we are also unseen, that if another world were watching, all they'd catch is our light, a dimming, a wobble, a shift. They might guess, they might wonder, they might hope, and what would they think of us, of our blue marble spinning through sunbeams? Would they know we breathe, we sing, we wonder? Would they think us alive, intelligent, worth knowing? Perhaps they are looking now over methane and oxygen. Perhaps they ask the same questions you do. Perhaps they too listen through a veil, and the thought comforts you that maybe wonder is not unique to Earth, that maybe dreaming is a universal language. You think again of the gap, the veil. It feels smaller now, not because you've crossed it, but because you've come to accept it. The universe is not withholding. It is simply far in the spaces in between. There enough for awe, enough for stories, enough to carry your thoughts into sleep. You picture a future when we do go, when engines shift, when journeys shrink, when children born today become navigators of tomorrow's sky. You imagine ships with sails of light, guided not by fuel, but by photons. You imagine landing not just probes, but footsteps, soil pressed beneath boots, water touched by gloved hands, the sound of a breath taken not on Earth, but under an alien sky. You imagine the silence of arrival, the first moment when distance collapses and unseen becomes seen. But for now, you remain still, here, listening. You turn inward, returning to your breath, your stillness, your place on this pale blue dot. The data streams in silence. The telescopes wait in orbit. The questions hang gently in your mind, like lanterns in the night. The unseen is not a problem. It is a promise, a reminder that we do not know everything yet, and that this is good, because discovery is joy, because reaching is meaning. And as you close your eyes deeper into night, one final question follows you into dreams. If what we see is only a fraction of what's out there, how much more beautiful is the rest? You don't need the answer yet. You only need to wonder. Asterisk, asterisk. You don't need the answer yet. You only need to wonder. That wonder stays with you, quiet, warm, weightless. But soon it begins to take a different shape. A shape less certain, more unsettling. What if life exists out there, but not in the forms we imagine? Not in water, not with lungs or eyes or movement. What if alien life does not shimmer with cells, does not beat with a heart, does not even pulse with breath? Would you know it? If it passed you by, you drift into this question, not with fear, but with openness, because even here, on your own planet, life is slippery, mysterious, constantly redefining itself. You remember the creatures found in Earth's deep oceans, organisms with no eyes, feeding on sulfur, thriving in boiling vents. You lie still now, in the hush of night, and think about jellyfish, how for centuries they were thought to be little more than floating sacks. And then someone noticed the patterns, the coordination, the logic in their drift. Even here, life reveals itself slowly. You think of viruses, not alive, not dead, messengers of code, able to shape evolution, forces of replication without intent. Are they life, or something just beside it? And if even that question has no firm answer, then what else might we be missing? You rest in this place of curiosity, in this soft ambiguity. You do not need to name a thing for it to be meaningful. You do not need to prove it to feel its weight. You return now to the idea that perhaps life is not a noun, but a verb, not a thing, but a process, a song unfolding, a self-sustaining pattern. And you realize that you are part of that pattern. You, too, are a ripple in the dance. And so is the star, and so is the silence. You think of Earth again, not as home, but as a model, a teacher, a singular version of something with infinite forms. Earth is our laboratory, our compass, our metaphor, but it is not the only way life can be. You imagine now a planet covered not in water, but in glass, shifting crystals that grow and break and rebuild, a kind of mineral logic. Or a world of gas where life is a density gradient, pulsing through layers of atmosphere. No body, no bones, just flow, just pattern. Would you hear that voice if it sang? Or a rogue planet with no star, only geothermal heat, life powered by pressure, not light. Could it grow in darkness? Could it think in warmth? You settle deeper into these thoughts. They are not heavy. They float like mist. You do not chase them. You let them come and go. Because in each one is a door, and in each door a new way of knowing. And now you drift again into the thought of what knowing really means. That maybe science is not just discovery, but recognition. The ability to notice a pattern, to see beauty where once there was blankness. You remember how microbes were once invisible, how cells were unknown, how germs were denied, until someone looked closer, until someone believed the unseen might be real. So you keep your eyes open, your ears soft, your mind wide, because life may be passing by even now. Silent and strange and glorious. And as you breathe into the softness of your pillow, one final thought glows quietly in your chest. The universe is not waiting to be found. It is already here. It is already speaking. You don't need to recognize it all tonight. You only need to listen. Asterisk, asterisk. The stars do not sleep. Even as you lie still, breath deepening, eyelids softening, the universe continues its slow unfolding. Above you, beyond you, telescopes open their mirrors like petals to the cosmos, drinking in starlight older than memory. The James Webb Space Telescope, a marvel of golden hexagons and fragile silence, hovers far from Earth, listening. And what it hears is not a voice, not exactly, but a pattern. A whisper of hydrogen here, a sigh of carbon there, curving. The spectrum that might mean water, might mean air, might mean breath. You think of Webb as a new set of eyes, not just for astronomers, but for humanity. Eyes trained not on our own reflection, but on the far, the faint, the never seen. That see light stretched thin by distance, bent by gravity, scattered by dust. Light that tells stories, stories of how stars are born, how planets hold their heat, how atmospheres evolve, and maybe, just maybe, how something stirs in the quiet, something that grows, that feeds, that wonders. But Webb is not the end. It is the beginning of a chorus. Soon, the extremely large telescope ELT will join it, with mirrors wide enough to collect the light of alien dawns. Soon, Love War and Habak's dreams, still in blueprint, may rise to orbit, their eyes finer, keener, kinder, each one a step closer to clarity, to hearing the faint song of life among the static of stars. You float in this future, not as a passenger, but as part of it. Your curiosity, your listening, your wonder, they are threads in the great telescope we are building together. The future of science is not steel and silicon alone. It is human. It is soft. It begins. In the hush before sleep, in the questions that rise like mist when the world goes quiet, you imagine the data pouring in streams of numbers, of spectral lines, of thermal maps, each one a pixel in the portrait of the unknown. And somewhere in that portrait, a molecule appears. Or something new, a compound with no known source in chemistry, no match in Earth's archives. A molecule that raises the heart rate of every scientist on Earth. Could it be? Is it real? Are we ready to know? You breathe into that readiness, not of certainty, but of openness. You are not demanding an answer. You are offering space, a place in your mind for the unfamiliar to arrive, a place in your heart for the possibility of something more. And then another thought drifts in: what if we could go? Not just see, but visit. Not just guess, but touch. You think of robotic explorers, of crafts wrapped in heat shields and intelligence, crossing vast gulfs of space like seeds on the wind. You imagine one descending through the clouds of K218b, dipping into the haze, scanning the fog, not with human eyes, but with sensors tuned to life as it might be. Perhaps it finds a structure, not a city, not a creature, but a pattern, repetition, rhythm, a chemistry that resets itself, that reacts to its own state. Perhaps it finds energy gradients that renew, feedback loops that echo. Perhaps it finds ... intention, not our kind, not born of neurons or need, but something that seeks balance, that defies entropy, that changes its environment in a way that can't be random. And back on Earth, in labs and classrooms and kitchens, people lean forward, hearts slow, breaths deepen, because even a whisper of life would be enough to change us. Not just what we believe, but how we belong. We would no longer be alone, not just in space, but in nature, in the pattern of existence. We would know that the story of life is not ours alone to tell. But that day is not today, not yet, and still you are not restless. Because the dream is not an emptiness. It is a presence. The act of hoping is itself a kind of connection. You are already in conversation with the stars simply by listening. The next generation will listen better. They will have better instruments, yes, sharper, stronger, smarter, but more than that, they will have better questions, more flexible minds, more inclusive dreams. They will look not just for life that looks like us. You are quiet now, wrapped in this vision, not in escape, but in return. Because to dream of space is not to leave Earth. It is to see it more clearly, to cherish it, to tend it, so that when others look back at us, they see something worth listening to. You'll remember again the golden mirrors of Webb, the breathless silence of the ELT. You picture Loveware folding open like a flower in the dark, and each one a gesture of tenderness, of attention, of love. You think of how far we've come from Galileo's telescope to mirrors in space, from scratched glass to instruments cooled by liquid helium, from questions whispered under candlelight to discoveries streamed across the world, and still we listen. You think of your own mind opened wider by wonder. You think of the child who will look through a telescope and feel something stir. The moment they realize the sky is not just out there, it's part of them, of all of us, and even now, lying here, breathing slowly, you are part of that. Dream, the listening, the reaching. You do not need a rival. You only need the next step, You do not need proof. You only need wonder. You do not need the answer tonight. You only need to dream. Asterisk, asterisk, you return to the question. The one that has lingered like starlight since the beginning of this journey. Could alien fish be swimming right now? Not as fantasy, not as myth, but as a real, living truth in a place no eye has seen. You imagine them, not with the precision of a biologist, but with the gentleness of someone dreaming. They do not need gills or scales like Earth's creatures. Perhaps they glide with fins shaped like ribbons, balancing against a gravity just light enough to lift them into slow, swirling dances. Perhaps their eyes are tuned to heat instead of light. Perhaps they glow from within in hues our senses can't name. You drift through these oceans with them. The seas of TOI 145 to B, K218b, LHS 1140b. You've touched them all in thought. Now they blend into one vast, dreamlike water body, stretching across light years, curling around moons, hiding in trenches as deep as planets are wide. These alien oceans are not silent. They hum with thermal currents, with magnetic pulses, with chemical reactions we're only beginning to guess. And in that hum, you imagine movement. Life not defined by lungs or spines, but by pattern, rhythm. Flow. Science hasn't found them yet. There is no confirmed splash, no fluke on a telescope lens, no spectral trail of scaled skin. But absence is not the same as emptiness. The exoplanets that swirl through your imagination tonight are rich with the raw ingredients of life water, heat, carbon-based molecules, and time. So much time. Billions of years for evolution to sculpt fins, to test bodies against waves, to invent balance in alien tides. You think of Earth, how life began in water here, too, in warm, dark pools near volcanic vents, in molecules that bumped together just right, again and again, until something began to hold its shape. Earth's first swimmers were not fish. They were whispers, but they came eventually. Fins followed, eyes followed, jaws, teeth, color, camouflage, and now here you are, a land-dweller dreaming again of water. What if the same slow song played elsewhere? What if alien oceans older than Earth have been singing for longer? What if their swimmers are already ancient, complex, graceful in ways we can't yet imagine? What if they watch twin suns from beneath the surface, knowing in their own way that there is something beyond their sky? You breathe slowly, each inhale like a wave, each exhale like a ripple. This is not a need for proof. It is a kind of comfort. The possibility is enough. The maybe is enough. It rocks you gently, like a boat held by invisible tides. You remember the technologies you've explored. Telescopes that read atmospheres, instruments that decode spectra, future missions that may send probes swimming through exoplanet clouds, or orbiting alien moons. One day, those tools might bring back more than data. They might bring back questions we never thought to ask, shapes we didn't know to recognize, patterns that make us pause. Would we know alien fish if we saw them? Would we recognize life that does not look, move, or grow like our own? Even on Earth, deep-sea creatures have startled us with their strangeness. There are fish that generate light, that walk, that change shape. There are bacteria that live in boiling acid, in ice, in rock. Life, it turns out, does not require our permission. It only requires a chance. So, exoplanet oceans hold life. If alien fish truly swim through those uncharted waters, they do not need to be waiting for us. They are not performing. They are not proof. They are simply there, being, existing in their own currents, under their own rules, their own suns. And that thought is the softest kind of joy, because it means the universe is not empty. It means creation is not singular. It means the story of life is vast, and we are not the beginning or the end, just one verse in a cosmic song. You let this possibility soak into you, not as belief, not as science fiction, but as a space to rest your wonder. You imagine a future where a signal arrives, not just light, but structure, repetition, echo, a sign that something moves with intention in liquid realms far from here. And even if that day never comes, even if the data never sings clearly, the dream still has meaning. You're reminded again that science is not just answers, it is questions, beautiful ones, like lullabies made of curiosity, like bedtime stories made of stars. You drift now to one of those faraway worlds. Picture yourself floating just above the water, a place where the horizon curves in an unfamiliar hue. Maybe the sky is red. Maybe clouds hang low, not of water vapor, and that answer is enough. That answer is where the next story begins. You close your eyes, you float, you dream of oceans, you dream of movement, you dream of life. Asterisk, you lie still. Your body warmed by blankets, but your mind is far from this room. It drifts gently now, not toward alien planets, but inward, toward a memory older than memory, a truth so quiet you almost forget it. You, too, came from an ocean, not the kind that stretches across exoplanets or hides beneath methane skies, but a warm internal sea, the amniotic tide inside your mother. Before you had lungs, before you had limbs, you floated. You kicked against a current. You turned slowly in water. Life wrapped around you in silence, in rhythm, in pulse. And even now, the ocean stays with you. In your blood, the salt remembers. In your cells, water hums. You are a creature of liquid ancestry, shaped by tides, sculpted by waves of evolution. Earth's oceans are not foreign to you. They are home. They are origin. And as your thoughts ripple toward exoplanet shores, you feel that line of connection stretch out, not thin, but strong, not distant, but familiar. You remember that life began in the sea. Not just yours, but all life here, in warm nutrient-rich swells, in hydrothermal vents where minerals whispered into molecules, in chains of carbon that learned to link, to twist, to replicate. Over time, the sea grew creatures, first simple, then strange, then stunning. Fish, fins, eyes, color. Then legs, lungs, feathers, wings. And eventually, thought. Eventually, you dot. It's humbling, isn't it? To know that every breath you take was earned by something that once swam. That every heartbeat follows rhythms older than land. Your spine, your skin, your very salt are echoes of oceans long vanished, yet still alive in you. And so, as you lie here now, wondering about oceans, on K218b or Kepler 138d, you are also remembering your own, the small one inside the womb, the vast one across Earth, the imagined ones light years away. They are not separate. They are parts of one idea, that water is the language of life. You close your eyes and picture it. A child floating in warmth, cradled by fluid, sensing light through closed lids. No words, no time, just pulse and drift. It is not so different from sleep. It is not so different from space. Scientists say that humans are about 60% water. That our brains, our hearts, our muscles rely on it. That without it, we cannot last more than days. But that's only part of the story. Water doesn't just sustain you. It defines you. It mirrors the cosmos. On Earth, tides are pulled by the moon. In your body, tides are pulled by emotion, by thought, by sleep. You feel that now. Each breath comes softer. Each muscle loosens. You are not sinking. You are returning. Returning to something essential, something fluid, something still. You think again of exoplanets, of how astronomers search for liquid water, not just as an ingredient, but as a sign, a signal that says, this world may hold life, because where there is water, there might be chemistry.